The third and final iteration of the Defiance of Fate fixed battles are finally here for you guys to tackle. And now these aren't fixed battles, you have to bring your own unit to this, but here's going to be the TLDR on how to easily cheese out this third boss. It's going to be a 3-wave triple boss battle. The first two, you guys out there who have done the fixed battles already have already seen them, which is going to be the lovely dovely Essence of Despair fight and the Maw of Malice fight. The third and final and probably easiest one for you guys out there is going to be Tel-Fulsanis. Tel-Fulsanis has a lot of mechanics, but fortunately for you guys out there, he's actually made of paper and you don't really need that much damage to just take him out on turn 1. So let's go what you're going to need to be bringing for all 3 of these battles. There are some things that all 3 of these fights do share. The first one is that they are all demon monsters, so you can go ahead and bring all of your demon killer. Okay, definitely bring the demon killer for these battles here. It's going to help you out substantially because it's going to work against all 3 of the bosses. The second thing that they all have in common is that they can all be full breakable. You can break their attack, defense, magic, and spirit all the way. They don't have resistance to it or anything of that nature. All 4 stats can be broken, so breakers are going to be amazing here. As always, the third thing is they all resist non-elemental damage by 80%, all 3 of these bosses. So non-elemental damage is not a way that you want to go against these bosses, so you need to pick some sort of element that you are going to want to bring. It doesn't really matter which one you want to bring, because the third or the fourth thing, I guess, that they all share, you can count this with the elemental one and the non-elemental one, but they all share a large resistance to several elements. The first boss resists all but fire by 100%. The second boss resists all but wind by 100% and still resists wind by 50%. And then the third boss, Tel-Fulsanis himself, resists all elements by 100% for you guys there. Now, it doesn't really matter which one you pick. Certain bosses, you know, you can bring fire for the first one and wind for the second one. You don't really need to think that hard because there's not really a crazy damage race with the first 2 bosses. If you're trying to cheese the third boss out, you're going to have the same restrictions as you do no matter what element you're bringing. You're going to need to bring a high elemental in peril. 100% or above is going to be ideal for you guys here, to just so you can start doing at least normal damage with 100% in peril. If you have less than that, you could still do it, but you're going to want to max out killers. If you have a friend, you find someone on the internet somewhere out there that can build for max killer as well, and it's going to make the requirements for being able to beat this damage-wise much easier. And when I say the boss isn't that hard to beat, he just doesn't have that much stats. You can full break him, like I said before, defense and spirit, and Tel-Fulsanis has 100 defense that's breakable and then 60 other defense that's not breakable. So with something like a 70% break, you're going to be looking at a boss that has 90 defense, which is super crazy to me. Now, he does have a little bit more spirit. He's got 200 spirit and 120 non-breakable spirit for Tel-Fulsanis, but outside of that, he's a very squishy boss. Now, let's go into the first 2 bosses. You've seen them before. The first one is going to be the Essence of Despair. This is the tankiest of all of them, especially if you're using a physical damage dealer. He's got a lot less spirit and quite a bit more defense here at 850 defense and then 200 spirit here. But he's really not that big of a deal. You've seen him before. There's going to be some certain things you need to take care of. You can bring either a physical or a magical tank. I personally brought a magic tank. I thought that was the best way to go about it here. But you can bring a physical tank if you decide to yourself. But I brought Sacred Shield Charlotte, as you can see in the footage that's rolling behind you guys. Now, he does have a lot of dark damage here. He's got Dark Storm and Event Horizon, an AoE dark physical attack, and an AoE dark magic attack. Outside of that, he's got 3 other things you're really going to need to take note of, and then one thing that's kind of out of your control, and the one thing that's a little out of your control is a little bit of RNG to the fight. So the thing that's out of your control, he has some attacks that ignore cover. This is going to be Dark Depression and Mad Rampage. Alright, so Dark Depression is going to be a 20 times multiplier AoE physical attack that ignores cover. Mad Rampage is the same thing, but it's a 24 times multiplier. And he could choose to use Dark Depression depending on how much damage you're doing each turn multiple times. He might not use it at all, he might use it a bunch. So that's going to be something that you're going to be thinking about there. If you see him use it like 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row, you're just really unlucky and you're just going to have to restart the fight. Alright, so think about, you know, if you see it, it's okay. You just lost the RNG war there. Now, the other 3 things to think about here and take note of is because you're going to be trying to end this battle relatively quickly. You don't really need to, but the things that are going to stop you is you got these 3 different skills: the Ethereal Barrier, the Mystic Barricade, and Hardened Skin. Ethereal Barrier is going to give him 50% extra resistance to all elements for 1 turn to the caster. So it's going to be these 3 things are sort of things that they kind of want you to wait out. You can dispel this one there, because remember, he's got 100% base to everything but fire. This is going to make it 150. So if you want to do damage the turn you see Ethereal Barrier, you're going to have to dispel him, put up your breaks again, and imperil him there. Mystic Barricade and Hardened Skin, these are going to be 2 effects you cannot dispel. Mystic Barricade is a 50% magic damage mitigation for 1 turn, and Hardened Skin is a 50% physical damage mitigation for 1 turn. Outside of that, outside of the RNG can't cover attacks and how much he decides to use them, not that big of a deal. The good thing though is that these skills that can't be covered, they're not fixed attacks, so all of your mitigations will work against them. So you have general mitigation, physical mitigation, magic mitigation, those all work, and they will all stack and reduce damage from all of his skills. The only thing that's a fixed attack here is Broken Mind, which you'll see right at the end. Remember, he's going to HP lock at 1%, and then when he goes to blow up on his own turn before you move to the next battle, he's going to AoE MP drain your entire party. Now, the way that around this, that a lot of you guys are going to use, you're going to have different characters out there who have a limit burst that restore a bunch of MP, right? Chow has it, Lucas is a new character who has it, Sylvie, who a lot of you guys have access to, has a limit burst like that as well. If you're going for the platinum, I think it's the platinum emblem or whatever it's called, the prestige emblem actually I think is what it's called. You can only use 10 limit bursts total for that medal. It's either 10 or less than 10, one of the 2. So you have to space out your limit bursts there on top of that. But there's a third option you can do. There is a use no items mission in there for the silver emblem, but if you don't care about the use no items mission, there are some very nice items you can get from the expedition system that you may have laying around that restore MP to your entire party. I believe like the best one restores 180 MP, and I do believe that those do work with the pharmacology trait. Now there are some pieces of gear out there, 3-star TMRs, even some characters. I think even Warrior of Light Lena has pharmacology as a passive that increase the effects of used items in battle by 100%. I think these effects do stack, but even if you have like 1 pharmacology 100% accessory or armor piece to throw on a character, if that's the strategy you need to go for, if you don't care about that silver emblem, you can go ahead and have someone with 100% pharmacology use that expedition item, and it should take it from 180 up to like 360 MP for your entire party, because this enemy is going to drain all of your MP before you go to the second boss in the Defiance of Fate, which is going to be the Maw of Malice. Now, if you're using a physical team, the Maw of Malice is going to be very, very, very squishy. It's going to have 160 defense before you break it here. It's still going to have the 100% elemental resistance and the 80% non-elemental resistance, but you can still full break it and it's still a demon. This one is going to work the same way that it did in the fixed battle. It's got that 79% HP lock, so keep that in mind. Remember, it's going to be pretty paper squishy if you're using a physical damage dealer team. You're just really going to it's got like a stiff wind is going to get him to 79%, so you don't need to unload with all of your max damage, your full breaks, all your imperils, your 2 King Rains going to the limit burst. You're just going to take him to 79% very, very, very easily with just normal damage dealing skills, depending on who you're using. So you don't need to like fully unload on the boss right away. Now this boss is going to do both dark and magic, fire and physical damage. So he's got dark, magic, and physical, and fire magic damage here, so keep that in mind as well. So just use those different elemental resistance buffs, put up your mitigations. General mitigation, AoE cover for magic is what I used as well, once again, as well as going in and using your physical mitigation and magic mitigation, full breaks, all of that good stuff. He can hit you with a little bit of downer status effects at some point here, and he still does have the Ethereal Barrier, Mystic Barrier, Hardened Skin, so go ahead and make sure that you have resistance to all of these different effects. He does have the enemy gazes at you, which is a single target 200% provoke, but I never really ran into that. I saw some people run into that. I've never ran into it personally. I've done this fight several times. It's at different thresholds, I do believe he does this skill. But if you bring in some sort of physical damage, this boss has 300 million HP, what sounds like a lot, but it's not really, because he's only got 160 defense before it breaks. Like if you break this boss by 70%, he's got 90 defense. You're just going to absolutely destroy this boss without even trying. He does have another HP threshold at 5%, and that's really not that big of a deal. And then afterwards, the thing that he's going to do is he's going to try to put disease on your party, which is supposed to be the big part of the final fight, with are the Defiance of Fate Lightning Tel-Fulsanis. It's supposed to be a big deal. Now you can go ahead, you don't need a resistance to disease buff and a resistance to disease passive on. What he's going to do is he's going to just try to inflict disease on you with 100% imperil if it works. Oh, darn. But the big deal here when you go into the final fight with Tel-Fulsanis is that he's going to put zombie on anyone preemptively who has disease, which is going to make it so you can't put auto re-raise on them, you can't heal them, you can't do anything, they're just going to die. Now, once you get into the third and final fight against Tel-Fulsanis, with this cheesy method, he's got all these different mechanics and stuff. You're going to see some orbs spawn, red orbs, left, right, front, and center, all this crazy stuff. The thing with Tel-Fulsanis, though, is that he does have different thresholds between 150 and 49 to 0. He doesn't have any HP locks, though. You don't have to worry about any of the sigils. All you're going to need to do, if you can go ahead and set yourself up going from boss 2 to boss 3, depending on what damage dealers you're using. There's a bunch of different characters out there. You're going to get all your cooldown skills back. You can, save your limit bursts, etc., etc. You're just going to need to hit this guy with your biggest imperil, hit him with your biggest defense break, get your biggest buffs on your 2 damage dealers, right? Maybe elemental imbue them as well as someone else, and just let it rip. And this guy is just going to eat the floor. There's nothing that's going to stop you. The 2 red sigils will remain alive, but what happens is at the start of the turn, if Tel-Fulsanis is dead, those sigils will just blow up. So he's not that tanky. He's got 800 million HP, but he's only got 90 defense, which is super crazy. You can just destroy this boss. It's a lot easier than you guys may think to blow up Tel-Fulsanis. Remember, you're going to need big defense break or spirit break, depending on if you're using a magic or a physical unit. You're going to need a 100% plus imperil, all right, for your character. And then you're just going to need to do big damage. Now, gearing and finding a friend unit that has Demon Killer is probably going to be the make or break for this strategy. If you find someone who's got Demon Killer stacked, they're using Diablos, they have, you find some help somewhere in Discord. There's a lot of people in my Discord, at the FF General Discord, on Reddit, wherever it is that you want to look for friend units. Just find someone that's going to set up a damage dealer for you. There's a lot of damage dealers who can go ahead and blow this guy up turn 1. A lot of different characters out there. It's really more about finding as much Demon Killer as you can. Karthan does it, King Rain can. There's so many characters that can just blow Tel-Fulsanis up on turn 1. Ideally, you're going to want to find a character who doesn't really need to set up for a couple of turns before doing damage. If you find someone that can just let it rip right away, go for it, whether it be with their limit burst or what have you. You just kind of like save their limit burst, because remember, the previous fight, the second boss locks at 5%. You'll be able to finish him off. He's also paper thin weak, so you can limit burst him down to 5, and then once you get your turn back, you just do some fiddly damage, finish him off, get your limit burst back, and then use your limit burst against Tel-Fulsanis here. So that's going to be the cheesy guide to Tel-Fulsanis. I wanted to cover the other 2 bosses. I know it's just Kill It Forehead, the guide, but a lot of people out there don't really know. They're kind of afraid of Tel-Fulsanis, and you don't really need to be. He's very, very easy to take out, especially if you're using a physical damage dealer. It's going to be way easier to use a physical damage dealer than it is to use a magic damage dealer if you're trying to one-shot Tel-Fulsanis, because he's literally got double the spirit than he does defense. It's still not that much, but double is still double. And when you work with 800 million HP, you're really going to want to bring a physical damage dealer for this fight at the end of the day. With that being said, guys, if you want to see more stuff like this, FFBE content, other Final Fantasy content, and other video games in general, check out the channel. Go ahead, hit the subscription button, turn the notification bell on. Be sure to check out the Twitch channel as well, where we play a bunch of different stuff. I'm sure we'll be blowing up Tel-Fulsanis live in real time as well. If you want to see anything else, let me know down in the comment section how you beat up Tel-Fulsanis, what you plan on using, what you did use. I'll see you guys on the leaderboards, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, guys.